So in the last video, we talked about my prediction for 2018, my first one about cash discounting, so make sure you watch that. That was my good news prediction. This part two is my bad news prediction, okay? So the bad news prediction is that I believe that Square is going to shift their strategy to outbound and become a serious competitor in 2018. I think for too long, it's been really nice for all of us to talk about Square and how, oh, they're these outsiders, they're not really, in our industry, and they're just doing like flea market merchants and mobile processing and all this, The truth is, every rep will tell you that's out in the field right now, that's no longer the case. Square is not targeting flea market merchants anymore. They're targeting your merchants, and they're targeting them with Square Register and good products that these customers are taking advantage of. So, I had a conversation. I haven't ever talked about this, I don't think, on my videos, but I had a random conversation maybe 4 years ago with Square. Several of their executives actually reached out to me and were talking to me about building an independent sales team with Square, because they wanted to, they recognized at that time that, they're spending all this money on marketing and everything else, but they really wanted to get out in the field and use the existing models that already are out there to flip merchants and move them around. And so right now, the cost of acquisition for Square is their biggest problem. They spend a ton of money to get a merchant, and so that's their biggest problem, and they're going to want to find ways to reduce that. So I think this is the year where Square is going to become more of a serious competitor. You're really going to see them start to chip away and get a lot of these merchants locked in. And so the reason I'm telling all of you that, and the reason I'm giving you this quote-unquote bad news, is that you need to start taking Square seriously, especially if you're an executive at a processing company. You guys need to already be having these strategy sessions about what are we going to do to compete with Square. Now, let me encourage you about something. One strategy I've seen that's really not working very well is people trying to compete with Square on Square's level. In other words, Square is a technology company. They're not a payment processing company, okay? And so if you're going to compete with Square because your technology is just better than theirs, you're probably going to lose that battle. That's not a battle that you're going to win. The other reason is because you have to understand Square is basically giving all of it away for free on the technology side, right? Because they have the iPad stuff. So, I think maybe it's $100 for the holder for the Square Register, or they're giving this little swipe away for free. I mean, there's just not a lot you can do there. If you do want to compete on technology, get ready to spend a ton of money, just like Square does, to acquire a new customer, because that's what it takes to compete with them on the technology. The good news is you don't have to compete with them on technology. They are terrible at service, okay? They are, their underwriting and their billing, there's a lot of issues that they have. So what you need to do is figure out what does your company do really, really well, and then how does that translate to competing with Square? But the one thing that I'm seeing that's really kind of boggles my mind is that even though Square has become kind of a juggernaut in the industry, it's amazing to me when I talk to salespeople, none of them have any idea how to compete with Square or how to pitch, here's how you can overcome stuff with Square. So I'm going to work on doing some content for that, but to be really honest, it's kind of tough because you really need to have a solid, idea of what your strengths are for your particular processor if you want to compete with Square, because, how are you competing with them? You could, one of the things I think is really a huge open market that nobody's taking advantage of right now is to compete on price. Everybody has this idea oh, Square, we can't compete on price. Yeah, you can. The whole idea of Square is they're at 2.75%, but the reason that they're there at 2.75 is because they're servicing all business types, right? Well, guess what? Many of you are selling merchant services and your effective rate is 2.5%. Well, people don't have a huge loyalty to Square. So if you could target a specific business vertical this year and say, hey, everybody, we notice that Square is really kicking our butt in, auto repair, but we know that the actual effective rate for auto repair is usually 1.8%. So we're going to do a 2.25% flat rate for auto repair. And we have a new program, no other fees. We're going to compete with Square on that. Go in there and sell them at 2.25%. Auto repair businesses don't care one bit about the Square Register. They don't care one bit about the technology. All they want is that flat rate because it's simple. Right? So just do a lower flat rate, compete on price. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You could compete on service. You could compete on a lot of different things, even on technology in terms of not trying to compete level playing field technology, but going in and saying, look, the Square Register is nice for $100, but let's face it, you need something more robust to run your business. So here's a micro system. Here is a whatever, right? A higher level of technology, and say, hey, look what we can do is we can do this. So there are definitely things you can do. I think really one of the best things you could do is compete with cash discounting, because cash discounting is something that Square right now, they have way too much visibility. I do not see them doing cash discounting. I might be wrong about this, but I would predict they do not do cash discounting in 2018 for sure, maybe not even 2019, because they're going to wait and see how the regulatory landscape settles before they come out with this public thing of like, hey, we're going to screw all the consumers, because they have Square Cash. And so they're also kind of in bed with the consumers as well. So they're going to have a really hard time coming out with that. So that's something where you can get the leap on them and go into people and say, Square's charging you 2.75%. We're going to be charging you basically 0.25%, like nothing hardly. So, we're going to save you 85% of what you're paying to Square. That's how you can compete. So think about it. My advice for you would be take a little time this year, whether you're an individual rep, especially if you're an executive of a processing company or you own your own ISO, just think about this. Think about a pitch. How are you going to compete with Square? And have a conversation about it with the people that need to have the conversation so they can get out there in the field and compete with Square, because I predict that Square is going to become a pretty serious competitor in 2018 in the brick and mortar mom and pop shop market that we're all so fond of and that we all love to go after. So my name is James Shepard. Thanks for watching or listening to this. Those are my two main predictions for 2018. Cash discounting, a lot of money is going to be made in 2018. And Square, they're going to become a serious competitor. Hope you have an awesome year.